Welcome back to Tanakh and Tea. So we actually have not released a Tanakh and Tea in a month. I'm sitting on two guest recordings, one with Zach Lennick, one with Dovi Newberger. And in those recordings, you're going to hear me say, oh, Keith had a baby, that's why he's not here. Except you never heard those, and Keith is now back. But to you, he's not back, because I think the last episode was with Keith. So
Don't be
welcome
fooled.
back. Yeah,
Don't be fooled.
welcome back to Keith for us, but not for the listeners. So B'ezrat Hashem, after Purim, I'm going to release those videos. It's been a little difficult to transition to video, but those will be with video. And before I release those, I was like, we have to do a Purim special, talk about Purim. So that's what we're here to do today. So we have the squad. We have Keith. We have Debbie. We have Or.
You don't see
the
it.
OG.
I wish we can.
Well, the truth is, the video that we did with Zach, that was the first time we did video. Debbie and Or in that shot, and we sat like this. And then we were like, So now we have Or and Debbie off camera, and Keith has taken the brave plunge of sitting in front of all the people, squeaking his chair. So, yeah, welcome back to Keith. Mazel tov to
Thank
Keith.
you very much.
The birth of your daughter
Thank you.
a month ago already.
Yeah.
Yeah, that means we haven't released Tanakh in a long time. If you're back, and we still haven't put it out. So B'ezrat Hashem, those videos will go out after Purim. So enjoy this Purim special, and you won't see this in the Zach Lennick video, or if you're listening to this on the podcast, you won't see the Tanakh and Tea poster behind me because we're still figuring things out. But
people don't realize how hard it is to make video.
Yeah, it is. It is at this point that I would like to shout out my beautiful wife Tal for everything she does to make this podcast happen, because it is very difficult the time that it takes to put into a podcast, and switching over to video has been difficult, and even just the audio is a lot of hours put in. So none of this would happen without Tal. So thank you so much to her for everything she does, and not just with the podcast. I wouldn't be able to do it with like her input and everything, but even also with the podcast, she helps a lot. So thank you to her. Anyways, let's talk about Purim. We're gonna do like a round robin of sorts with Purim. I know Keith has some thoughts. I know Debbie, I see two papers full of thoughts. I'm sure Or has some thoughts on Purim.
I actually don't have enough thoughts.
That's fine.
It's unfortunate.
You're gonna
We
have
need thoughts.
You're gonna have counter thoughts.
I have
sure.
I have things. I
Yeah.
have thoughts.
I figured I would just start it off with, I guess, a sort of Dvar Torah, I guess, some sort of, talk on it. And then we'll take it from there, and I'm sure things will come up. So, as we've spoken about many times on this podcast, my favorite day of the year, and this side of the table's favorite day of the year, is Yom Kippur. And
What episode was that where we talked about we rated?
I think that was the last one. I think that was the last episode. I think we're just coming right off that. So,
Segue.
yeah, perfect segue.
Yeah.
So, spoiler alert, I was reading this, and it actually has a list for which holiday represents which day. Remember we joked about that? That like, oh, is Sunday this day? So I'm going to actually get to that. So every day of the week, on the last episode, I think, the last episode of Tanakh and Tea that was released, we did for Tanakh Barbershop Talk our favorite holidays. And we said how like the literal holiday, meaning like the first day of Pesach, Shvi Shel Pesach. And we said that there's 1 week of holidays, with Yom Kippur being Shabbat Shabbatot, and then you have the 6 other days. And we joked that, oh, maybe they correlate to a day of the week. And turns out, when I was reading this, they do. So, therefore, I'm going to bring that up soon. But I wanted to start off talking about Yom Kippur and the correlation between Purim. It's this famous thing that Purim, Yom HaKippurim, right? I'll start off by saying I think Purim is way more difficult than Yom Kippur. I think most people like naturally would say, "Oh, Purim is best day." Like a lot of people, if you ask them their favorite holiday, it's Purim. Purim is a trap in a certain sense. And I know I said that about Hanukkah. That Hanukkah is a trap. I guess the rabbis are just trying to trap us. The rabbinical holidays are like difficult to pull off in a sense because they're not as simple. Like Chagim, which is you don't do malacha and you go into like the same zone as Shabbat, is so much more simple in terms of pulling off. A black and white world is actually easier than a complex gray world, and Hanukkah and Purim are more complex in that you're still living somewhat of a normal life. You could work, somewhat and this and that. So I want to talk about the this concept that we live our life in a milchama. I think you've probably heard me talk about this before, but I don't think the podcast has heard me talk about it. But my mushal is that we are all mermaids. How are we all mermaids? We are all half animal, half angel. That's what a human being is. You're half animal, you are half angel, and you have a constant war between yourself. Your animal side wants to eat food and all the animalistic desires, and it needs to, not just wants to, it needs to. And your angel side wants to sing to Hashem, get close to Hashem. I know a lot of people have experienced that feeling when you're doing something that feels good, doing something that feels spiritual. You are feeding your angel side, and the truth is, both sides need to be fed. And if you are only feeding your animal side, then you're feeding your angel side fish food. And if you only feed your angel side, then you will die. Your body will die. So you have to do both. And this is where you get this concept that people who are, who have everything, have all the money and all the desires in the world, can be unhappy because they're feeding fish food to their angel side. Doesn't matter how much fish food you feed it, your body will be satisfied, but your angel side won't. Now, by contrast, you'll never see like a dog who has all its physical desires and everything's good be sitting there like, what's the purpose of life? Like a dog won't be just sitting there going, but I'm not happy. No, they will be happy because they're just an animal. But for us, we're not just an animal. So you can take care of that all you want. You could keep putting fish food. It's not going to work because you're only half fish, right? In this mushal, you are half fish from the waist down, and you are a man, so to speak, an angel from the waist up. But the catch with this war is that it's not even a fair war. Because if you think about mermaids, where do they live? They live in the ocean, which means for us, even though we're a half man, half angel, we live in the physical world. We live in the ocean, so to speak. So the reason why Yom Kippur is my favorite day of the year is because Yom Kippur is a day off from this mermaid war, this internal conflict that we live every single day. On Yom Kippur, you go full man. You go full angel. You're like, at the end of, what's that movie with the mermaid? The Little Mermaid?
Little Mermaid.
So
The little one, the tiny one.
When you're no longer a mermaid and you get legs, right? So like throughout the year, if you want to get spiritual, so to speak, you can dip your head above water. Like getting prophecy would be like talking to someone above water. Like an actual angel would be a man in this mushal, and you're like heads above water and you're talking to them, right? Like the more spiritual you get, the closer you get to the surface, but you still can't walk out onto dry land. You're stuck in the physical world. On Yom Kippur, you strip your fish parts, you go full man, and you have the ability, you say Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Lambed out loud. You don't eat, you don't need anything physical, right? The idea of Yom Kippur being a fast day is not because it's a sad day, it's because you are not a human that day. And if you do Yom Kippur correct, you should be partly sad on Monday Yom Kippur when you have to make a mazonos on a cookie and you have to make havdalah, because that's back to the war. And that high that you're feeling, it's not possible. You can't be an angel, at least not right now. Right, you have to go back to that war. You have to go back to the physical world. And every month Yom Kippur, I really don't want to. Like I'm really like holding on to it because it's such a relief to be able to sit in shul and daven all day and go full angel and give your soul a full 3-course meal, a spa day, without worrying about feeding your body in any way, without feeling the desires of anything, without the complications and complexities of life. That's what makes Yom Kippur amazing. And the flip side of this is Purim, right? Because there's balance here. On Yom Kippur, you go full angel, and on Purim, you go full body, right? So Purim, it's a mitzvah to drink. It's a mitzvah to eat. It's a mitzvah to act like an animal, so to speak. We dress up, right? Like this and that. On Purim, you are going the opposite direction, which is really v'nahapachu, it's upside down. Because if you think about this war that you're living all year, you always pull towards Yom Kippur. Meaning you're in the ocean, and your natural way is to be pulled towards down into the ocean, and you have to make the effort. The effort isn't made to act like an animal. The effort is only made to act like an angel, and you just pull up. And then on Yom Kippur, you just pull up more. You like just totally, remove yourself from the fish portion of yourself, the animal portion. So Yom Kippur is really easy. Like everyone does Yom Kippur correctly. It's just a matter of how good of a Yom Kippur you come out. But Purim is actually difficult to pull off because Purim's weird. Purim, you're going the wrong direction. You're going deeper into the ocean. And the catch with Purim is Hashem says, I'll meet you in the ocean. That's the love of Purim. Yom Kippur is like the fear. Like you're going towards Hashem. You fear Hashem. You're going into His world. And on Purim, Hashem's coming into your world. And that's what makes Purim so amazing, so happy, so full of love, because you don't actually have to fight. You don't have to pull up. You're actually going into your natural tendencies. The catch is with Purim is that you could just get drunk on your own, and you can do your own Purim, not get drunk with Hashem, so to speak. And now you're just using it as an excuse for, you know, all
Debauchery.
sorts, yeah, exactly. All sorts of animalistic things, which unfortunately I think a lot of people do. The way I like to look at it is like there's multiple parties in the Megillah. You know, like it starts off in the beginning with Achashverosh's party. He throws in a 180-day party and then a 7-day party for Shushan, and it's like an epic party. And because we went to that party, that's why we had the decree of being annihilated by Haman. That's what caused it. And then at the end, there's a party where like Esther is, so to speak, you know, visiting Hashem, and Hashem's not in the Megillah, but they say that when she goes into the king, she's visiting Hashem, she's talking to Hashem. It's like getting drunk with Hashem, so to speak, at the end. The party then includes Hashem. And then the question is, you know, which party are you attending this Purim? Are you doing the end of the Megillah party, the party with Hashem, or sorry, not Esther's party, the party that all the Jews do after they defeat everyone on the 13th of Adar, and then on the 14th in Shushan? Are you doing that party that the Jews are having, or are you doing Achashverosh's party? And unfortunately, I think a lot of people accidentally, without realizing it, end up doing Achashverosh's party, which is the whole reason why we were going to be annihilated on Purim. So it's like, again, it's like the opposite of what Purim was intended for. It's very similar to the Hanukkah as a trap thing that I was saying over there. It's the exact antithesis to the holiday. So, me personally, I feel like Yom Kippur, every Yom Kippur, I come out of Yom Kippur feeling like I killed it. Like, it was like amazing. Like, I don't want to go down. But it gets to Purim. I don't know. I feel like I've had like 3 good Purims in my life where I actually like got to the place that I want.
It's pretty good.
I don't know. Yeah. You know, 3 out of 28.
It's hard to nail a holiday, I would think.
But the problem with Purim is that essentially Yom Kippur, it's so simple. It's so simple. And then on Purim, you're going down into the dirt, and then there's like a portal over there where Hashem will meet you. It's like the wrong way, but there's like a portal at the bottom. And it's like, it's so hard to find the portal at the bottom of the ocean. There's so many ways to go wrong here. And, you know, drinking
What do you think is
this
the
and
key to making the Suda the right Suda?
I don't know.
Is it a mindset? Is it what are you doing when you're having l'chaims? What are you trying to achieve?
So I think one of the concepts needs to be that you should, if you are getting drunk,
If it's not to have a good time, right? Like, what are you trying to do?
I think you should be getting drunk with Hashem, so to speak. You know what I mean? Like, if you're drinking, like, I think that should be a goal. I don't even know what that means. Again, I've only had 3, so don't listen to me. I've had like 3 good Purims, you know? Like,
what was good about those Purims?
those Purims, I think there was like a sort of like, you know, you're feeling Hashem more. I'll include some more things, then we'll come back. Because this concept that between Purim and Yom Kippur, he has an amazing thing over here that I want to read over here. So, by the way, was that clear? The mushal with the mermaid? That was clear. Okay. I don't know. I don't want people to be confused. Oh, just to add on to this mushal, why I think this mushal is so real, is that happens to be, I was learning with my Rabbi Peled, the Vilna Gaon's commentary on Sefer Yonah, and in Sefer Yonah, he says that Sefer Yonah is a mushal. And the mushal is that when Yonah's on dry land, he's in the spiritual world. And when he goes into the boat and into the whale and whatever, he's in the physical world. And then when he comes back, he's back in the spiritual world on dry land. Which my mushal was literally the ocean being the physical world, and man, and you know, us being a mermaid, the man portion is the angels, the dry land is the spiritual world. And that what that means is first of all, the mushal that he gives is that this world is temporary. You're not fully comfortable here. Like even if a person lives as a sailor and they live on the water, there's still nothing like going back home, getting back on dry land. So far in Neshama, it's a little lost here, and there's going to be nothing like when he gets back onto dry land, back into the spiritual world. But what do we read by, I believe, is it Mincha on Yom Kippur? Or I believe Mincha, right? On Mincha by Yom Kippur, we read Sefer Yonah, which would, on its face, seem really random. There's answers given for it, but my answer is that this mushal is real with Yom Kippur. Like, that's what Yom Kippur is. It's aligned. So, with that being said, you should read Sefer Yonah on Purim.
Yeah, when you come up with an idea and then you see how it
aligns
after the fact.
Yeah, I was like, whoa, you know, when it hit me. So, with that being said, in Megillas Esther, in Perek 9, 19, so Yud Tet, It's calls Purim a Yom Tov. Like when it sends out and says that you should celebrate Purim, it calls it a Yom Tov. But Purim is not celebrated as a Yom Tov. What is a Yom Tov? A Yom Tov is Pesach. A Yom Tov is Shavuot. A Yom Tov is Sukkot. No Malacha. But Purim actually has Malacha. So, like, what's going on over there? In the Gemara of Megillah, it actually says that it was supposed to have that halachic status, but it was not accepted by the people. And he gives a deeper reasoning over here. The reason he says over here is really powerful. He says that Purim is like above everything else. It's like, you ever heard this concept that Purim's going to exist even post-Mashiach? So what does that mean, Purim's going to exist post-Mashiach and other Chagim won't? Like it says like only Purim will be
Wait, there's no like Sukkot?
no Sukkot, no Pesach.
Wait, really?
Yeah. So he gives this answer over here, and he says, I'm quoting, by the way, Rav Dovber Pinson. I have no idea who he is, to be honest. I got this book on the beach
Just
minyan
got handed this book
from
by-
Debbie's father. Yeah, on the beach minyan, they were handing out
Just
these
walking,
books.
just walking around the beach.
They're handing out these books, and then I asked Debbie's father, who was at the beach minyan, I asked him, and I said, what are these books? And he said, I don't know. And then at the end, he came up to me and said, they're handing them out. Here, take one. So I started reading it, and it's got great stuff. So,
Don't
so-
try it at home. Don't think
so-
if you go to the beach, you're just gonna have some random guy give you.
Well, if you go to the beach minyan in Hollywood, you probably will. We have a beach minyan in Hollywood every Rosh Chodesh. I saw Debbie there also, and yeah, it's an awesome minyan. So, anyways, so what is this concept that there's be no more Pesach? Like that sounds terrible. No Pesach. Like a part of me is like kind of like dreading Mashiach a little bit. You know, like of course I want Mashiach, but I love Pesach. You know, no Sukkot, like only Purim. You know, like so what's the deal with that? So he explains as follows. He says the whole idea of Mashiach is that you're going into a world that is fully Shabbat, meaning there's no more weekday. It's not that those holidays are gone. It's that those holidays are every day, meaning you only have a holiday when it's a distinction between a holiday and a regular day. If it was Pesach every day, there would be no Pesach. That's just a regular day. So he says that the holidays align with the day of the week, as I mentioned earlier. And when Mashiach comes, every single Sunday will be that holiday. So Sunday, anybody want to guess what Sunday would be? It goes by the Sfirot. So Sunday is Chesed. So the holiday for Sunday
Don't
will be
say it.
Pesach. Yeah, Keith got it.
Wow.
So Pesach would be Sunday, meaning when Mashiach comes, every Sunday has the spiritual power of Pesach. So there's no Pesach if it's every Sunday. By the way, Sunday, best day of the week.
Is Monday Yom Kippur?
Not Yom Kippur, but you're close.
Rosh Hashanah?
Rosh Hashanah, right? Yom Hadin, we know Monday is Gvura.
Wait.
So
Tiferet,
Monday is Rosh
Tiferet,
Hashanah.
Tiferet.
Sukkot.
That would be Shavuot.
Shavuot. So Tuesday, which is Tiferet, it's just Shavuot, which, by the way, is in the third month of the year. Shavuot, right? Because you have Nissan, Iyar, Sivan. So Shavuot is in the third month of the year, and Shavuot is Tiferet. Wednesday, Netzach, victory. I should translate these. Sorry.
Victory.
Let me translate them just in case.
Well, Netzach means eternity.
Chesed, one second. Sunday,
victory.
Chesed is kindness. Monday, Gvura is power. That's Rosh Hashanah. Tuesday, Tiferet is splendor. And then Wednesday, Netzach is victory. So what would Wednesday be?
Oh, for sure, Sukkot.
No.
No. Chanukah.
Well, Hanukkah is rabbinical.
Oh, so it's only biblical?
We're only talking about, remember that, the actual Yom Tovim, like literal Yom Tovim.
What?
The right to.
Oh, so would it be maybe the seventh day of
Yom
Pesach?
Kippur.
It's very hard to get 'cause it's a trick question.
Oh, there's
Oh.
none.
Rosh Chodesh.
Oh.
Oh.
Rosh Chodesh.
Wow.
Now Rosh Chodesh wasn't on our week, which means the holiday is getting kicked out. Which holiday guess which holiday is getting kicked out? Remember we said one holiday is clearly the worst holiday, has no identity of its own? Shvi Shel Pesach, in our week of holidays throughout the year. So Shvi just goes on Sunday with Pesach. I mean, it's the same midah.
Actually, yeah, we don't say full Hallel.
Right. But meaning it's part and parcel of, right, it's not its own holiday. So Sunday is just the idea of Pesach. Shvi Shel Pesach doesn't have its own identity, which means Rosh Chodesh is Wednesday, which makes sense because Rosh Chodesh is the renewal of the moon. The moon and sun were created on Wednesday. So that, and that's victory. We say, like, by Kiddush Havana, which we said tonight, David Melech Yisrael Kaveh Kayom, like, it's all about, like, Jewish continuity and reestablishment in the kingdom. So Netzach makes sense. Thursday, which is Hod, which is Thanksgiving. So Thursday What holiday would that
That would
be?
be Sukkot, probably.
That would be Sukkot, right? Sukkot, we have massive amounts of hallow. We thank Hashem. It's the ingathering of the year, right? Sukkot is all simcha. It's giving thanks to Hashem.
So I guess that leaves us with Yom Kippur.
So no, we didn't do one yet. Friday is what?
Yesod.
Yesod, which focuses on others, right? Yesod,
Simchat Torah.
foundation. So Shmini Atzeret,
Right.
aka also Simchat Torah. It's the same holiday as we mentioned. So that's the culminating of all the holidays. So that would be Friday, right? So Friday is Simchas Torah, Shmini Atzeret, and then Shabbat. You might think is Yom Kippur, but he says over here Shabbat is always Shabbat. He says Shabbat is Shabbat. So what happened to Yom Kippur? Because in our week that we did, Yom Kippur was Shabbat Shabbatot. He says Yom Kippur is the 8th sphere. Yom Kippur, right? This famous thing that there's 7 days of Sukkot and the Shmini Atzeret, right? This concept in Judaism, the 8th sphere. It's above the 7. It's above everything. So he says Yom Kippur is actually above everything. It's the 8th, and Purim exists in that same area where Purim is above. And he has this amazing thing over here, which he says, on the 7th day you need to make a separation between melacha and non-melacha, but on the 8th sphere you don't need to. Meaning, when you go above the 7 spheres, when you get into the 8th sphere, now you enter a state of Purim. Now you enter a state of labor within rest and rest within labor. You don't need to make a separation. You're above the whole system. And that's why he says Purim is a Yom Tov that you can do melacha. It's above everything. And this is where he really put something into perspective over here. This 8th millennium, right, so to speak, that Yom Kippur is above everything and Purim is above everything. So of course nowadays Yom Kippur, we have to treat it like Shabbat and everything like that. Meaning we don't have the ability to get into that Yom Kippur mindset like it's Purim, because you have to go that direction. But Purim, you can do it with the malacha. But here's the amazing thing: there's no Havdalah for Purim. Meaning Yom Kippur, we said Yom Kippur is a day off from the war, and you have to make Havdalah. And I said it's sad when you have to make Havdalah. It's back into the war. You have to go back. Purim you can take with you. There's no Havdalah for Purim. You just go bring it into the year with you, which makes Purim even more powerful. Because when you do something with love, when Hashem is meeting you in the dirt, Hashem is meeting you in the ocean, you don't have to go back. You're in the ocean already. This is where you exist. You just have to keep Hashem with you here somehow. Hold on to it. But this is why it's so much harder than Yom Kippur, because Yom Kippur, you're going into the spiritual world. You're going out into dry land. When you're there, it's going to feel great. Yom Kippur, you feel great. It's just a matter of how good you feel. Purim, though, you're in the same location where all the dirt happens. How are you going to... And you can't even make it a Yom Tov where you don't do malacha. You're still doing malacha. Everything feels somewhat normal, and you're drinking this and that. This is what makes Purim so difficult to pull off. What makes Purim a trap? And the truth is, I don't have the answers. I just have the concept. You were asking Keith before, like to me, it's just difficult. It's just I think this year might be easier than others because it's a Friday, so that might give it an extra kick of kedusha. You can pull it into Shabbos with you, but I don't know. It's Purim. For anyone listening to this, reach out to me if you have the secrets to Purim. Yom Kippur I find to be like it's the best. But Purim essentially is a day off from the war also, because you go full body. It's a day off from the war because you go full body. But in a certain sense, it's not, because you have to somehow go full body correctly, so to speak. So it's a fake day off from the war. The only real day off from this Mermaid war, this internal conflict, is Yom Kippur. Purim is like this pseudo day off. And I wanted to point out something, this correlation between Purim and Yom Kippur, a proof that they're connected, and that one's full body and one's full angel, full soul, is in the way you prepare for them. Think about what you do Erev Purim. You're about to go full body. What do? You fast. You have to give your soul a little something before you pull it off. And think about what you do Erev Yom Kippur. It's a mitzvah to eat. It's a mitzvah to go full body that day, right? That's the correlation. You have to prepare for both of them in the exact opposite way, because you're about to strip the one day a year, you're about to strip a half a part of yourself. So you have to give, before Yom Kippur, give yourself a little more fish food than usual. And before Purim, give yourself a little bit more spiritual food than usual. So, yeah, those are pretty much my thoughts on Purim. In a way, it's more of a Yom Kippur talk. It's like, this is a big day. You're really excited to go on Yom Kippur.
I don't know. Maybe I missed this. I don't know if you said this, but
Yeah.
it's a cool, pretty simple proof of the connection between Purim and Yom Kippur is that in the Torah, Yom Kippur is called Yom Kippurim.
Right.
Kippurim is literally means like Purim,
Yeah.
which actually kind of implies
That
that
Purim is the
Purim
holier one.
is
Yeah.
because if Yom Kippur is like Purim, like it
Can I-
implies Purim would be the ideal.
I'll give you a reason why I think Purim is the holier one in a certain sense, or the more special one. Because if you think about it, they're both days of atonement in a way. If you really think about the history of Purim, the context of it, like let's talk about Yom Kippur first. Yom Kippur was the day we got the Torah. People don't realize that, but Yom Kippur was the day we got the second Luchot, and it was the day we got forgiven, and we had the whole system since Tisha B'Av, and Yom Kippur was the day we got the second Luchot.
Wait, Josh, I
and
just
now it's
noticed
atonement.
something actually. It's that happened on Kitisa, right? With the Egel.
Yeah. Well,
We got the second set of-
the Egel happened then.
The Egel happened, but when did we actually get the second Luchot? In what parsha?
I don't
I'm not
remember.
sure.
Because it's ironic that
That happens around this time of year.
yeah, because Kitisa is actually my parsha, and it's just funny how it falls on Purim. And like that's usually, I can tell you every year, my birthday's on the 14th of Adar. Well, 15th because I was born at night, so Kitisa and Purim oftentimes line up, and Kitisa is when we do the the gold Egel HaZahav, talks about kosher, talks about a lot of like specific halachot, how we that there's that prayer that we talk, it's like V'avor Hashem al panav, like it comes from that parsha. So it's just funny how that's on Purim. So is that what you're talking about, like atonement in that sense?
No, so I'll tell you how Purim's a day of atonement. Like you have to think about the context of Purim, the timing of it. We were in Israel, right? We were always in Israel since Moshe led us there, and then Yeshua brought us in. That was our story for 440 years until the Beis HaMikdash, and then 410 years of the first Bet HaMikdash. And then we get kicked out, and things are bad. And then we get kicked out by Babylonia, and then the Persians take over, and we're in Persia. And that's when the Purim story happens. And we know the ending of the story when things work out, but you have to think about it before it works out. We had just had the Bet HaMikdash destroyed. All the terrible things that we talk about on Tisha B'Av, Sefer Yirmiyahu, that just happened within that generation. Mordechai lived through that. As I believe Esther's parents died in that. I believe that's why they're not around. Esther's parents literally died in the destruction, I believe. And a ton of people died, right? And now you have, for the first time ever, an attempt to annihilate all the Jews. And now Paro didn't really attempt to do that. It never, all our troubles in Tanakh, nobody ever attempted to do that. People attempted to take land. The problems were more normal, so to speak. At least our enemies in Tanakh times had a motive. Land, this, that, normal geopolitical things, so to speak. No matter who our enemy is, right? Now, we have the situation with Amalek. They didn't really have the opportunity to annihilate us. They attacked us just to attack us, knowing that they would lose. Now you have, for the very first time, and it's happened since then, but this is the first time anyone has ever got up to kill out the Jews just because they're the Jews, right? Haman was the first person to do that, and he actually had the ability to pull it off. All the Jews were under his kingdom, and if you think about it, if you're a Jew at that moment, you know what you might be thinking to yourself? This is it. We got kicked out of our land, and this is Hashem giving us the final blow. It's all over, right? We're at our lowest. We had just been taken out. Now we're attending Achashverosh's party. We are at the lowest of lows in terms of our history, and this is the end of the Jewish story. And that is when Hashem flips everything and then accepts us back, and then that leads to the second Beit HaMikdash. It's a huge turning point, Purim. It's a day of atonement. It's like a day of atonement for after the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. Everyone thought it's over, right? We're in Galut. Now we're going to be killed out in Galut. This is the end of it. We're, in the cycle of Kiddush Levana we spoke about, earlier when we were talking about day 4, that every day of the month represents a generation of Judaism, that Avraham was Rosh Chodesh and Shlomo was the 15th, so he's the full moon. Well, this was generation 29. This is full darkness. This is right after, it's 14 kings later. Not exactly 14 kings, because some of them are brothers, but 14 generations later, and it's complete darkness, and everyone thought it's over, but we're like the moon. We get a Rosh Chodesh. We go back to the second Beit HaMikdash. Purim is the first time we do that flip back into that new moon, So Purim is a day of atonement. Nobody was expecting that. So it represents Yom Kippur like that. It in a lot of ways. So Yom Kippur is Yom HaKippurim. What makes Purim amazing is that Hashem did it, without the context of Yom Kippur is with Moshe Rabbeinu and him going up and Moshe on our behalf and we're in the desert. It's all way more spiritual. Purim is just us. There's no Hashem mentioned in the Megillah. We're in Persia. We're so to speak on our own, and just natural events happening, right? You can read the Purim story and just say it's a coincidence here and it's a coincidence there. But it's Hashem showing us, yes, you're in Galut, but it's not all over. I'm going to be with you. So the context of Purim is really Yom Kippur in a lot of ways. So I think that's the connection.
Well, besides the fact that literally tshuva is done in the Purim story.
Right.
I mean, the whole turning point is the point where the Jewish people fast.
Yes.
In preparation for
On Pesach, they fast.
Pesach itself.
Yeah, 3-day fast.
For Esther's as Esther's approaching Achashverosh, that's where everything flips. So
Yeah.
tshuva.
It's like they managed to do a Purim that year, and maybe we should be copying their Purim in a certain sense. Like maybe Purim is a day of tshuva. If Yom Kippur is a day of tshuva, maybe Purim is. It's just a way of doing it, and where Hashem is Hashem's coming to you, so it's more special. Meaning, usually you have to on Yom Kippur you go to the king to apologize and to do tshuva, and on Purim Hashem's coming to your house, is coming to you.
Well, people say the same thing with Elul, right?
Right.
That Hashem is more
But
accessible.
I think he's more accessible, but you're still going to him. Meaning, like the
He's
gates.
like, oh, my
the
door's
gates-
open, but you still come into my palace, yeah.
Meaning, during the normal year, the castle is closed, and like there's only certain ways in on certain days. And then Elul and Tishrei, the castle's open, but you still got to go into the castle, so to speak. That's kind of the way I'm viewing it. And on Purim, Hashem's leaving his castle and he's coming house to house. He went to go get us. We were in Persia. We were on our own. Like Hashem went to go get us and bring us back home to build a second base in Mikdash. So, yeah. I hope this allows people to somehow pull off Purim, because I still, there's no roadmap for it. I don't know how you're supposed to do it.
You just know it's hard.
I just know it's hard. I know there's like this concept.
So you've done it before. So what was it the
I don't know,
environment?
Keith. Let's flip this on you, Keith. Have you had a successful Purim?
Don't put me on the spot like that.
I'll let you know after Purim.
I've
I'm
had-
actually
I've had
spending
good
almost
Purims.
my
I've
entire
had good
Purim with
Purims.
Keith. So maybe
That's-
hanging out with Keith is the answer.
Yeah.
I'll let you know after.
We'll see. I've had good Purims.
Where you felt like you accomplished like what you're supposed to accomplish.
Yeah.
In yeshiva, I did. Yeshiva, I did maybe a couple.
If you're in a Jewish, so for me, I think it's more of, because like you said, it's very much Yom Kippur. It's not. I mean, it is in a sense what you make of it, because it's how good you feel. But it's easier in that way to make it positive, because, like you said, there's no melacha. There's, what else are you gonna do, right?
Yeah.
It's either you just don't eat at your house or you go to shul. So it's very black and white.
Yeah.
Purim is very, and I could say this by, just going through school and not always going to Jewish school, and that my best Purim has always been when I was a kid and when I went to a Jewish school, right? You dress up, it's a whole fun day of partying. Doesn't matter if you're in 5th grade or high school, right? Like Hillel had pretty good Purims, not gonna lie.
I do remember those.
Yeah, they had really good ones. And then for me, most of my adult Purims sucked, because it was just another day in school for me. And then all I did was I went to the Megillah reading the night before, sure. Wear some sort of costume, that's cool. You're in Chabad for a couple hours with college students. And then you go the next day in the afternoon and hear it. And then, so you only really enjoyed it for 2 hours.
Then you had no choice. You know what I mean? If you have school and you have a job that you can't, you don't have a choice or whatever.
I mean, that's adult life.
Yeah, that's adult life.
I'm not going to take off of work because I've Purim in real life. It's just not.
Well, I want to build on that idea, because I want to push back on that. Meaning, if you have the choice to take off, this is something I've had arguments with people before, which is that do you take off for Shavuot? So anybody who is religious, it's, of course, I have no choice, right? The catch of Purim is supposed to be a Yom Tov, as we're saying, that you're supposed to do malacha, but meaning, if you could take off for Shavuot, you should take off for Purim. Meaning, if you were allowed to do malacha on Shavuot, then you would also not take off Shavuot. That's what you're telling me.
Depends how you view the holidays. If you view the holidays as some sort of
Well, I'm happy I
well,
get to take off.
it is
right?
obligatory, right? You can't do malacha. So if you just view it as an obligation, sure, as long as there's no obligation not to
Then you'll go to work.
work necessarily. Although it's not exactly so, it's not like you can just do any work on Purim. There are some restrictions. There's obviously even time of need you can do work. But if you see holidays as an opportunity to tap into something, and then Purim would be just as important as any other holiday to be able to focus in on whatever that idea is.
Well, but the question is, what would I do? Let's say I take off during Purim, right? It's more than just like obligatory with the Yom Tov, let's say on like Shavuot and stuff, because it's also designed for you to take off, meaning, right? You have shul, you have constant events, you have learning all night. Everyone around you is doing it. So even if let's say everyone took off work for the day of Purim, right? All the adults took off work. What would we do?
What you're
Right?
supposed to do is you're supposed to do Suda.
Aside from, having the Megillah reading and being in shul, then sure, I understand that, right?
Yeah, the suda.
But we already do that, and that could be after work. So what would you do?
I'm not saying it can't be done.
Everything can be done, but
of
like,
course.
why
Why don't
we'll just have one after
why don't we
Shacharit?
post? Why don't we drop a poll in the
No,
in
to put it
section
simply,
or take off?
to put it simply,
So that with
if Purim
electricity.
is like Yom Kippur and it's this huge opportunity, then you shouldn't waste any of it. And now, how to do it correctly, we can talk about that in a second. But one thing you know for sure is that you shouldn't waste it and you should try to maximize it. So the point is, if you're somebody if you don't have the ability to take off, like you have school or whatever, and like you don't have the, you try to make the most of it. But if you're someone who could theoretically take off and there's no real, like a lot of people have flexibility in their lives. And what you're saying is, if you don't take off, in my opinion, and you're somebody who has some the ability to, what you're saying is that the only reason why you're not taking off Shavuot, and the only reason why you're not taking off Yom Kippur, and the only reason why you're not taking off Pesach is because you have an obligatory reason not to. And if there was allowed to do malacha on Pesach, you would punt on Pesach on terms of the opportunities. Keith was
You
saying.
go to the Seder in the night.
You would do it minimally, meaning thank God Hashem forces us not to do malacha on those days, so you're able to maximize
Right.
those.
I mean, I would still do the tefillot and do everything, but yes,
Right.
I'd go to work
I
and then.
actually think low key, and I don't know if this was designed on purpose, but Purim, in my own experience, is the busiest holiday.
Yes,
Like if there was
there's
any
so
like
many things to do.
yeah, if there was any
Yeah.
holiday that I needed to take a day off because I was
Yes.
so busy, I don't know if that's designed by Chazal, by the rabbis, but I feel in a sense a need to take off because I feel when
Right.
the day itself, between Mishloach Manot,
Yeah.
Matanot Avanim, and the Suda and the Megillah, it's packed day.
Also, another factoid is like holidays, right? You're not meant to do alone. Just like keeping Shabbat, you're not meant to do alone. So if I'm the only one that takes off and then everyone goes to work,
No, you have to.
it's
go to the
also
environment.
it's you have to it doesn't do anything.
Okay, so now
for
let's
you.
talk about the correct way to do Purim. So I guess that's what we're circling around.
Right.
I think the correct way to do Purim, of course you have to have the time and whatever, but the correct way to do Purim is to have an amazing Suda. And it has to be even better. You know, like on Shavuot and again all these you have a Suda with family, and a lot of times you'll have a big one with friends or whatever. On Purim, you should have an amazing Suda. You should have even more people. Doesn't have to be by yourself. You should go to someone. I'm going. Shout out. Shout out to the Savisis.
If you're listening to this, you're invited.
But the correct way to do Purim is to have an amazing Su'uda, just like a Yom Tov Su'uda. You should have a Su'uda, and you should have it with as many people as you can. This is where the Malacha allowed is an amazing thing, because you're able, it's easier to get around. You could have, and then you should be drinking and you should be having an amazing time with a lot of people that you love. And the idea of Purim is a day of unification, in that even though, you know, Hashem accepted us even though we were so down and so low, and therefore we accept every Jew on Purim. Meaning on Yom Kippur, there's like a standard that you're trying to get to. Purim, the standards are gone. Hashem is coming to you in your dirt. You should accept everyone else in their dirt. And this is why you should love every Jew regardless of what they look like. And this is one of the reasons why we wear costumes, is so that way the lines between Jews are no longer there. Like, you know, like there's a natural thing. You see a Jew and you're like, oh, he's Yeshivish, he's Mon-Orthodox, he's Hasidish. Well, Purim, that's gone. Purim, everyone's in costume. You don't know who's who. And you just accept everyone in full love. And that's why you're giving everyone gifts and you're giving money to the poor. So the idea of Purim is just a unified day, a day of love between everyone and just accepting everyone for who they are without expectation, without without a level that people need to get to like Yom Kippur. Just accept everyone, then hopefully they'll be picked up from that. You reach that portal on the bottom through the dirt with other people. So I think that's the correct way to do Purim is to really be with others, and be with Hashem
Connect
in
with
the best way
others
possible.
and,
So with that being said, take off from work on Purim. If you can. If you truly can't, then I get it. You know what I mean? But
so
but
do you,
meaning
do you work, Josh? Do you work at?
no, we don't have school.
you don't have
I'm
school?
a teacher, so it's unfair for me to say like I get off for holidays, but I'm saying people in your situation. You know what I mean? Like you have to ask yourself, why am I taking off Shavuot or Pesach? Am I only taking it off because I don't have a choice whatsoever? Or am I taking it off because I want to take advantage of the opportunity? If you want to take advantage of the opportunity, as Keith said, then don't let the fact that you can do malacha on Purim lose you the opportunity to do Purim correctly. Then Hashem should have made it, the rabbi should have made it that it truly is Yom Tov. That way you get the, what's it called? But you're missing the opportunity. So don't miss the opportunity of Purim. If you can take off, take off. Like people don't take it seriously, I think, because you could take off is what I'm saying. Look, you have to look at it that way. That's the flip. I know Keith does. Keith always wastes all his days off.
I use all my days off on these things.
So I'm not an example because I'm a teacher. You know what I mean? I get up for the summers. You know what I mean? Like, but here is a real life example. Keith loses all of his vacation days for
I have a
reasons.
pre-made email. I'm taking these day off for a Jewish holiday, religious observance. Please don't be mad at me.
And by the way, I had this argument when I was in PT school in UM. When I would take off, they would say like, "Oh, you really can't come in," and I would go, "No, I can't come in. I literally cannot." And then, if it was Purim, maybe they would go to, and I believe when I wanted to take off for Purim and it was like, well, you could come in. Well, it's like, well, who are you to decide that I could come in? Well, let me ask you.
Yeah, by the way, they
if a
wouldn't know
Christian-
the difference. I just
No, but
call it
also-
Jewish holiday.
No, but also if a Christian think about it. A Christian doesn't want to go to work on Christmas. They can drive to work. A Muslim doesn't take off. They take off for their holidays. They can drive. Because we have holidays where you can't drive, now we have this concept that when you could drive,
You don't take off.
You don't take off.
To be fair,
Other religions-
To be fair, there's no way they have as many holidays as we
That's
have that
true.
we take off.
That's true. We have to take off a lot. It's only
By the way, just I started my current job. I started like in August, and it's like the first month I'm in. I'm like, by the way, in September, I'm gonna have to be off like
Half the month.
entire month. Like there was some times where it's like like it's when it's like Tuesday, Wednesday. It's like should I just take the whole week off? Like I'm taking a month, but yeah, that's
Anyways, I just have one more thing I want to get to, and then I want to hear Debbie's 2 pages of material over there. See what we got. But there's one thing I wanted to mention. Keith, you mentioned that there's not enough time on Purim. So I wanted to mention because in America, I think this might go by without people realizing it. But this year is an amazing thing happening in Yerushalayim, which is Purim Meshulash. Is that what it was said? I think so. Meshulash, that's what it is. Purim Meshulash. So, which means triple Purim. What happens is the 14th of Adar, Purim outside of Yerushalayim, or pretty much everywhere outside of Yerushalayim, is on the 14th of Adar, and that never falls out on Shabbat. But as you know, this year it's falling out on Friday, which means Shushan Purim, the 15th of Adar, Purim in Yerushalayim, will fall out on Shabbat. So what do? It's called Purim HaMeshulash. What happens is it's called triple Purim. Purim gets split over 3 days. So we can't read the Megillah on Purim because we're afraid that maybe people will carry the Megillah to shul without an Erev. And also you can't do the Su'udah on Purim, on the Purim Su'udah on Shabbat, because one joy removes from another, right? So this concept that what will your Su'udah be? If it's for Purim and Shabbat, then both are losing part of the joy. And so therefore, the Megillah, because you don't want to push off the Megillah, and the point is to publicize the miracle, we do that on Friday. And because once the Megillah is being read, you don't want to make the poor people wait for their money, we do Matanat Levyanim on Friday. So those 2 mitzvot get done on Friday, and that's it. Shabbat, which is the actual day of Purim in Yerushalayim, they do the Megillah, they do the Torah reading that you do on Purim, and they do Al Hanisim, because it's the actual day of Purim. You do that in your benching and everything. And then the Su'udah gets pushed off to Sunday, and Shalach Manos gets pushed off to Sunday, which means from like a Purim perspective, it gets split over 3 days. On Sunday, for people in Yerushalayim, they only have 2 mitzvot, and and also it's a mitzvah to drink more that Shabbat because it's the actual day of Purim. And some people hold you should have a Suda, so you should really like make your Shabbat more special. And then, so yeah, that's another like, amazing thing that's happening. So this would be the year. If you're listening to this and you're like, should I fly?
You're listening.
Should I fly to Israel? No, if you're listening to this in America, you're like, should I fly to Israel for Purim? You will give up a Friday Purim in America for a triple Purim in your.
Well, I remember when I was in Israel that I knew people that would do the double Purim, which is you do Purim outside Yerushalayim and then you travel
back
into
in,
Yerushalayim to do Shushan Purim.
Yeah, I did that when I was in yeshiva.
And I forget exactly how like it works out according to Jewish law, but if you
Yeah.
go at a particular time, you would
But you also
be obligated in the mitzvah.
you also don't even need to be obligated because you could just like go out and like.
Or you just not do it.
No, do Purim Su'uda, not do like Megillah and stuff, and then come back to Yerushalayim for all that. But yeah, Purim Meshulash this year in Yerushalayim. Go to Yerushalayim. It's awesome. I wish I was there. It's probably like gonna be crazy. So, yeah, that solves your problem, Keith. If you wanted more time for Purim, split it over 3 days. That's it.
Perfect. Pasha. Yeah.
So yeah, Debbie, you have you want to share with us what you have, your thoughts?
I'll share a few thoughts. So I was thinking actually quite a bit about how to really get the most out of this Purim, since we've talked a lot about Yom Kippur and how Purim is really the exact opposite, but trying to get to the exact same place in a different way. And so if we look at the month of Adar, as we've said many times on the podcast, that each month has its own essence and its own energy and its own letter. And the essence of the month of Adar is joy. And the Rambam says that the joy of Adar means the joy of doing mitzvot specifically. And he brings the example of David HaMelech, of when he's bringing the Mishkan back to Yerushalayim, he's like dancing and singing and having the most amazing time, like really, really celebrating. And his wife Michal comes to him and she's like, you really shouldn't do that. That's like beneath you. You're a king. And he's like, this is actually exactly what I should be doing. There is no king other than God. And he brings that example to show that a lot of times we might think like, oh, joy is easy and it's just something that's natural, but it actually takes work to do things with joy. And even if it might seem a little strange sometimes, we should be able to tap into that energy. And so Purim provides the perfect conduit for that. Because Purim, like you said, I loved, by the way, the reason you gave for why we use costumes and masks. But another reason that I heard is that the costumes makes you feel a little bit more childish and brings out your inner child. Exactly. And so brings out that joy. And it makes it so much easier to be able to kind of connect with that energy of Purim. That's one aspect. And it's interesting because Adar obviously always is before Nissan. And it's always said that this joy that is kind of tapped into in Adar is necessary for Nissan. So Adar is all about the hidden and tapping into more like inner relationship with God. And Nissan is all about these big miracles, which is interesting that Esther's fast is on Pesach and Adar precedes Pesach, right? Like that connection with Purim and Pesach. So the joy is necessary to reveal that redemption, that ultimate redemption, that Mashiach, that joy. We need to be able to have it. Because actually, even when we look at Parashat, I think it's Vayera, where Moshe comes and tells the people, like, we're going to get out. And the people can't hear him because they're so short of breath. They can't understand that joy. But actually, another idea that I heard is that the 10 chapters of the Megillah refer to the 10 Sfirot. Each chapter represents one Sfira. So I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm just going to go through 2 that I found really interesting. So the 5th chapter, which is Esther's request of Ahasuerus, is like she goes in, and this one chapter 5 represents Gevurah. And she goes in and she's like ready to sacrifice herself. She's like, I'm all in, like, if I die, I die. And it's just so incredible that that's the chapter, that's Gevurah, which is Yitzchak, which is, he's the ultimate offering ever. Yes. Like, we use Yitzchak as our atonement in Yom Kippur. And that's the chapter where Esther goes in and offers herself for the Jewish people. But the most interesting one that I found was in chapter 7. So each of the 10 Sfirot which are the 10 divine emanations, the 10 attributes of God that we kind of refer to when as humanity to try and connect with God. All of them are referred to explicitly in the Megillah. You'll see like Melech and Hod, and you see a bunch of all of them except one. And the only one that we don't see, does anyone know?
Gvura.
No, we see Gevurah.
Scan the Megillah.
I'm gonna guess
Tiferet.
Yesod.
No, Yesod is there.
Wow.
Netzach.
Netzach.
So Netzach is not there at all. What?
Surprising.
Surprising. And Netzach is right where it's Haman's downfall. That's the chapter. Chapter 7 is Haman's downfall, which represents Netzach. And the Arizal says that Purim exemplifies the tikkun of Netzach. So it's like the ultimate form of completion or redemption of that sphera. How? It's like the rectified expression of Netzach, because we have this victory, this physical victory of the Jewish people. You overcome death, you overcome this death sentence, but even on a more elevated level, like eternity and this everlasting connection that we have, the Jewish people, right? We have a victory over an enemy of Amalek. Obviously, we know that the Megillah is known for not having God's name or anything. And through that power, through that hidden power, through the essence of the hidden nature of God is the ultimate eternity that we have as the Jewish people. So I found that interesting, like that connection between the Sfirot. You want me to, I have one more.
Yeah.
No,
Actually, like Purim is like the ultimate day for like Kabbalah, no?
there's so,
There's so many. It's all about the hidden.
it's all about exactly.
Well, they say Megillat Esther is you can literally translate that as revealing the
The
hidden.
hidden. Yeah.
But also even her name. Her
Oh,
name's
yes.
not actually Esther. That's her putting up a
Hadassah.
mask. Her name is Hadassah. Which I actually saw this amazing thing here before Debbie continues, that the gematria of Hadassah is 74, and that is the same gematria as da, like to know, and meaning we don't actually know anything. And this is the idea of like Purim. Another reason why we wear costumes is that you think you know who you are all year, but you don't really know who you are. Meaning, and Purim is actually being honest for the first time all year, that you're just wearing a costume all year. You're everything about you is a costume. You don't really know who you are, and that's why on Purim you're supposed to like drink to the point you don't know the difference between Haman and Mordecai, because you don't know anything ever, and then on Purim, what we thought was bad, meaning on Purim, every event that happened in the Purim story was going to lead towards our annihilation, and it was right after the destruction, and in the end it was all good, which is the thing for our life, that all the bad things that we think are happening in our life in the end will be all good, because all the cards for Purim were bad. The timing of it, everything was bad, and turned out it was all good. So you don't really know anything, and that's another day of Hadassah and Da, and the whole idea of drinking. So you don't know, because you don't know the difference, and then also with the costumes. But I also liked what you said about the costumes.
Yeah, so I want to take what you said one more step.
Yeah.
And I think Debbie also alluded to this with the joy. There's so many different themes of the day. So I always like to ask, when you have a holiday, especially when you have a holiday, usually a holiday really has like one main mitzvah. So you kind of just like try to figure out what that mitzvah is trying to tell you to do, and then that'll tell you what the holiday is trying to get you to do. But when a holiday has multiple mitzvah, the question is, okay, well, what's the thread? So I'll tell you one idea, that this idea has been what has really allowed me to focus on my Purims. And if I ever had a good Purim, it was because I was able to understand this idea. So Debbie alluded to the fact that Purim is connected to Pesach. Actually, it's like a very important practice, I think, whenever I think of a holiday. In the same way, again, we haven't had a basketball mushal yet in this podcast, so we have to have basketball. If you were to just enter in the middle of a basketball game, turn on an NBA game, doesn't have a scoreboard in the bottom, or you can't see what time it is, you're just seeing people playing. It's very hard to feel very invested in the game without knowing the context. What's the score? What quarter is it? Who's winning? What point are you at in the season? So it's always very important to have context whenever you're in any area of time. So when you're talking about holidays, right, it's very important when you're trying to understand a holiday, to know what's the holiday before and after, and how does one draw into the other, because all the holidays are really a process, a cyclical process that we're repeating every single year. And we're supposed to be reaching new heights every single time. So we know that whenever there's a leap year and there's 2 months of Adar, which month do we put Purim in?
The second.
Only to connect it to Pesach. That's
We
your
put it in
Purim.
the second Adar.
Meaning
Why?
The second Adar is the extra Adar. It should be in the first.
Exactly.
We just do it
when we
only
have
to-
2 Adars,
yeah.
we put Purim in the second one. Why? Gemara gives the reason, so it could be connected to Pesach. There is some very important connection between Purim and Pesach, which is very, in my opinion, very unclear, because they're the opposites. Purim is all about the hidden. Hashem isn't mentioned in the Megillah. There's
It's not
no
of
fancy,
any
fancy
miracle. It's
miracles.
just consequence.
There's no open miracles, so to speak. Pesach's the opposite. Pesach is, when you're talking about miracles, 80% of the miracles people could list are the miracles of Pesach.
Yes.
Pesach is open miracle season.
We don't say Tachman the whole month.
We don't say
keep it
Tach-
open.
Exactly. Some people don't say Tafnin for Adar.
Well, actually,
I don't know if that's connected.
well, Or's mother, my mother-in-law, shout out Ima. So she asked me why don't, she said if Adar's supposed to be super happy, and like then it should be like Nissan that we don't say Tachnan. So I said I think the reason why we do say Tachnan is because it's hidden, meaning you're still doing the regular, it's like life is normal. Nissan is just wide open, so you don't say Tachnan. But you're telling me there are people who don't say Tachnan all either?
I'm pretty sure Chassidim.
Well,
don't
they
say-
never say Tachnan.
Oh yeah. So, more they look for any opportunity. So
Except Yom Ha'atzmaut.
happiness, joy. I had a good day today.
They
with
only
the
say
city.
Tachnan or Yom Ha'atzmaut once a year.
Exactly.
תחנון יום עצמאות.
So here's the idea. So this I've heard from Rav Dessler, and I think he gets this idea from the Maharal. The Maharal says something interesting. We view miracles a little. The common understanding of miracles is that miracles is Hashem trying to, like do a little hand wave. Like we don't see him, maybe we don't acknowledge him. So Hashem tries to kind of like get in our faces and do like these crazy tricks to try to get us to believe in him. I think that's a pretty simple understanding of miracle.
Yeah.
Most people view it that way, right? We need miracles because every once in a while we're not paying attention. God sort of just kind of forces his hand. Does something so extraordinary that it can't be ignored. And then we're forced to whatever, whether it's worship him, this, that, whatever. So that's actually an incorrect understanding. The Maharal says something very interesting. And he actually brings a proof. One of the proofs he brings is from the story of Pesach. So when you had the plague of darkness, for example, we know that for the Egyptians it was dark, for the Jews it was light. Now, how I always pictured this, I never asked this question, Maharal asked, but
We had
I always
iPhones.
pictured this. What?
We had iPhones with the flashlight.
That how I always pictured it is either there was like the Jewish people on one half of Egypt with the lights on, and then the Egyptians totally dark on the other half. But we know there was actually blending, because one of the reasons for the plague of darkness is that Jewish people would go into the homes of the Egyptian. It would be pitched black, completely
And
dark.
take their stuff.
Go open their safes when they're not looking, whatever. So the Jewish people were in these dark homes. So how am I supposed to picture that? So I always imagine like this little like hovering light around the Jew as they walked into the pitch black home. But of course, it doesn't make sense. If someone were to walk into your house hovering light, you would be able to see them. The lights are on. It doesn't matter if. So the Maharal says something very interesting. You could be in the same place, right? And a miracle will be apparent to one person and not the other.
You can see the
Excellent
light,
proof.
and the other person can't.
That's an
see the
excellent
light.
proof. He brings a lot of different proofs.
I thought
One
he
of
was
them
going
is
to say night vision
interesting is
goggles.
Yoshua, is that there are Mefarshim that say that the sun stopping by Yoshua only happened to Yoshua and the Jewish people. Interesting.
So everyone
That
else,
is one of the examples.
everyone else is a full day ahead of us right now.
It's unclear how the physics of this works. That's what he's
Daylight
spells
savings
out.
tonight.
What?
Daylight savings tonight.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, all this to prove that you think miracles are an automatic thing. But no, actually, miracles are more on the person's perspective than they are on Hashem necessarily doing anything.
Well, that's Purim.
What?
Meaning you don't. We can both read the Megillah and see, and I could see a miracle and you can't, or vice versa, because there's no miracle in the Purim story. We all call it a miracle, but it's not.
Mm.
I mean,
Exactly. So, and we know this because the Jewish people, of course, they see all these open miracles, and we know all the trouble they caused in the desert afterwards. So the classic question is, how could the Jewish people, having seen the sea split, how could they ever possibly sin again? So now we know that, based off exactly what I'm saying, is that miracles aren't a clear-cut thing, right? Miracles are more on the quote-unquote eyes of the beholder, right? More on the person. How do they perceive the situation that's going on? And in fact, two people could be looking at the same scenario. One person could be seeing it as a miracle. The other person could be explaining it away as some physics. And I do actually know that there are people who spend their time trying to figure out the physics of how exactly the seas could have split from a wind in a way that's in line with the laws of physics. So there's always a way to explain away everything. So what's the connection between Purim and Pesach? Purim is a prerequisite for Pesach. This is the Michtav Eliyahu speaking. If you don't know how to have miracle glasses, if you don't know how to look at things around your life and look for the open versus hidden miracles, not even such useful wording, to be honest. It's not so clear what would make something open, what would make something hidden. Two people again could look at the same thing. One person could be like, wow, that was absolutely miraculous that I was saved from this accident. Another person could be like, oh, thank God, whatever, coincidence is that. So when you learn on Purim to look at and see Hashem performing miracles when he's not in the open, then you can enter Pesach and
Really appreciate the miracles that are there.
Exactly. The flip side, if you don't have Purim, you can't do Pesach. Pesach is not going to mean anything. You're not going to be changed by Pesach unless you learn how to, in the dark, so to speak, to see Hashem's light working in the background. So how I think this is related to this idea answers, I think, almost any question with Purim. Why do we wear masks? Of course, because Hashem is hidden, right? And we're learning to see what's under, what's beneath all the hiddenness. Why is Adar related to joy? Because of course, that this is how to achieve joy, is to be able to see the good that's hiding underneath everything in your life. Joy is not something that comes to you. Joy is not some outside thing like Pesach, right? Joy is an Adar, specifically in the holiday, where it's Hashem is least apparent, because joy is an active practice, and it's exactly how you achieve it. Seeing Hashem in everything. That's exactly why Chazal says, the rabbis say, why do we to what point are we supposed to get drunk? Until we don't know the difference between Baruch Haman and Aru Mordechai, between blessing Haman and cursing Mordechai. What's the idea there? That you're supposed to have such a clarity. Getting drunk on Purim is a means by which allows you to have a certain clarity where you don't see all the boundaries between black and white, good and evil, and where for at least a moment of time, you could understand that everything is good. Haman was, the entire story of Purim, Haman was just an actor to reconnect the Jewish people with Hashem. If you take Haman out of that story, it's questionable if Hashem and the Jewish people ever reconnect and in the following generation actually go back to rebuild the temple. So what you see is that it's not so. Hashem is really in everything, and that's the story of Purim, the story of why it's related to Simcha, the story of what we're supposed to be tapping into in our Surah. We're supposed to be trying to connect to that idea, especially if you're getting drunk in a responsible and lishma with the right intention way. Try to connect to the idea that really Hashem is in everything. All the challenges of your life, everything is ultimately.
But also Haman. Hashem is in Haman.
Exactly.
Hashem sent Haman.
Haman is just the most extreme
unknowingly
example.
Eved Hashem.
Exactly.
And he's the ultimate person. He's the ultimate Rebbe for us. Meaning he's really the hero of the story. Without him, we don't do teshuvah. Without him, we don't come back.
Right.
You know what I mean? The difference is he doesn't know it. He's not rooting for us, but he didn't hurt a soul in the process, and he actually got all of us to do teshuvah and got us the second Beis Hamikdash. He did what Mordechai couldn't do, in a certain sense. So, you're saying Haman is the hero?
So I remember my Rebbe from Israel when on Purim, when I was really into this idea, and I was whatever we were like we were celebrating, we were partying on Purim in a healthy manner. I was telling him, like, we were starting to sing Baruch Haman, bless this Haman, bless this Haman. There's a song Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem. So we're plugging Haman. I was like, why don't we sing this all year round? He's like, okay, like, there's a reason you do this one day a year. You're only blessing evil on one day a year. The rest of the year you need to have these boundaries, but it's important for one day of year to quote unquote take off all these masks and just recognize. You have to have a little bit of that recognition that Hashem is underpinning everything, that His goodness is underpinning everything. Of course, like, again, you can't do it the rest of the year, right? You have to fight.
I mean, you can say the same thing about like Nazi Germany and Israel, right? You can make a case if the Holocaust didn't happen, Israel wouldn't be a country.
Yeah, exactly.
What makes Purim amazing, though, is that we didn't have to experience any consequences before the reward. Like, of course, it seems to be like clear. There's a connection between the two. But we had so much pain in order to get that next step. What makes Purim so amazing is that all the pain in the world was promised and none of it was delivered on.
Right.
And that, like, it's so unique. Versus other times, like, we needed the pain in order to push us. We did teshuvah, like, preemptively over there, pre any pain, and then pulled off the full teshuvah, and Hashem accepted us without even taking a single person. It's, like, really, like, pure love, you know? So, B'ezrat Hashem, we should have
chesed.
Yeah, we should have that kind of, you know, when Mashiach comes, hopefully, and just in general problems in your life, you should hope that it should be like Purim, where it's like all the pain that's promised doesn't actually arrive even one iota. I just want to add one thing to what Keith just sparked an idea, man. Then I want to get back to Debbie's thing, was that, you know how, like, people always talk about how, like, the way the nations do New Year's in January, it's just like a party, and like we take New Year's, like, you know, Rosh Hashanah, it's like all serious and like it's all scary and everything like that. Like, there's no party and so just on a very superficial level, Purim is a New Year's party, because the New Year is actually Pesach. The New Year is actually Rosh Chodesh Nissan, and Adar is the last month of the year. It's Yud Bet. It's the 12th month of the year, and Purim is literally like one other aspect that I try to do on Purim is I try to do like appreciate my whole last year. Like cheshbon nefesh, and like get like a party of the last year, like look at what you accomplished the last year, and then like get prepared to go into the new year, which would now be Nisan and Pesach and everything like that. So Purim is just a New Year's party. It's like the end of the year, like bash, and like you really like take a look back on how everything's going. So it's just a very, like, not even spiritual. It's very superficial. Like you don't think of it as New Year's, but it is. You know.
Gotta get the ball drop.
Yeah. We should do.
Sponsored.
Yeah. Anyways, getting back to Debbie, you had another point you wanted to get to.
Just one more idea, that the letter of the month is Kuf, and there's like this paradoxical concept here where Kuf can mean Kedusha, right, and Kadosh, holiness, but it can also mean Klipa, which is like, Klipa means covering, but Kabbalistically it also means like evil. It's actually the opposite of Sfirot. It's this concept of opposites, like you're talking about, like light versus dark, good versus evil. And so you mentioned the gematria of being knowledge, and so the Gemara says, where do we find Haman in the Torah? And it's actually in Bereshit. It says Hamin ha'etz, like when they eat from the tree, that is where Haman is. And what happens when Adam and Eve eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil is that they integrate the concept of evil inside. So there seems to be always going to be some form of evil, but it wasn't going to be inside of us, and we integrated that part into our soul, into our being. And so they disconnect from Hashem when they do that. They hide, literally they hide, same as Purim, as everything is hidden. And on Purim, what you're saying is like, we want to drink and party until we get to a point where you go back into the Garden of Eden before they ate from the tree of
you gotta get really drunk.
Yo, you're
talking like psychedelics now,
Adam.
Debbie's advice for Purim is do some hardcore drugs. I think you're back in the. That's the way to do Purim. You better take off from work.
But yeah, the
Sorry to cut you off.
I agree. The idea to go to the pre like sort of these, I don't, for lack of a better term, superficial categories of good and evil. Not
Yeah.
the superficial. I just
Well,
thought
now
better
the world's
word for it.
complex, is what you're
Yeah,
saying.
exactly. The klipos.
Before it was
Klipos.
obvious, and now it's inside of us, and
Mhm.
it's complex. Good. We don't actually know the difference in good and evil. I guess we'll get to that soon with in non-Tanakh. We're about to get to Adam and Chava, and the eights and everything. Eights of das. So, but yeah, you wanted to finish that thought, or that was the end? All right, I just want to throw out one more thing, and then we can wrap it up, unless you have something else. But I believe I mentioned on the last episode that the people did not hear. I think it was with Dovi, or might have been with Zach. That I think I was talking about how the 12th month of how Adar is broken down into 2 months, and what would the shevet be, or So I said I'm presuming that the second one would be Levi, because he's not given yet, and it's like there's no sign for Adar bet. So I said, it feels like to me it should be Levi, and then I got this book, and it said that it would be Levi, or it would be all 12 Shvatim together,
Wow.
which is interesting. But then he said all 12 Shvatim together is Levi. Levi's job in the Bet HaMikdash was to represent all 12 Shvatim. So I threw it out in the last pod, and I was like, I hope this is real. And it turns out it
Shout
is.
out to myself.
Yeah, shout out to me.
Yep, everyone has a
Yeah.
meaningful Purim.
Meaningful
Shout out to
Purim.
Hashem.
Yeah, so hopefully this podcast helps. I don't know if it will. Email Tanakh and T. At the
Should or take a day off of work.
email Tanakh and T on Motzei Shabbos, and let us know if it helped. And yeah, thank you for listening. Thank you, or Debbie and Keith, for coming to another episode of Tanakh and T.
Time.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
appreciate you always coming, and yeah, it should be a amazing Purim.